So, good morning. Happy Father's Day. Yeah? If you don't know me by now, you will never. No, I'm just kidding. I am Sean, and I am the family pastor here at this beautiful church. And I'm so thankful for the leadership here. I'm thankful for the presence of God that is here every single time we come together under His name. I can go ahead and tell you it's not like that everywhere. So we need to cherish it. We need to be thankful for that. If this is your first time here, again, we are so grateful to have you. Choir, you sounded so good on that last song. Sounded amazing. I just had to stop and listen. It sounded so angelic. Thank you all so much for being here today. We are honored that you're here. Now, something you need to know about me is I'm always the one that looks at the calendar, and when it says Father's Day, I'm probably not going to be the one that talks about Father's Day. When it's Christmas, I'm probably not the one to talk about Christmas, because I am the one that whatever Holy Spirit is saying or wanting to say, that's what I want to bring, okay? But today, looking over the recent events around us, I found myself burdened for this next generation. We've had time and time again words spoken in this house that the next generation is going to be the catalyst of the greatest outpouring of the Holy Spirit in the form of a revival we've ever seen. You guys, God saved the best for last. Yeah. And I'm burdened because I'm looking around us and I'm seeing so many things take place. And I have learned in my life that if things are taking place, something needs to be cut. Something needs to be taken care of. Something needs to be healed. If you have a broken arm and you don't take care of it, you're going to live the rest of your life with the effects of having a broken arm. Even if it repairs itself, there's a good chance it's not going to repair itself properly because you didn't take care of it. I also understand that when a tree is not bringing forth its fruit in its season, that you're supposed to cut on it. Because when you cut on it, it causes health to come back to life. It brings life back to the tree itself. But I also understand that sometimes the tree itself will not produce because the roots are not connected to the right source. So it would be easy for me to come in today and to get us hyped up as a church, as a body of believers, against some of the organizations that are running rampant right now with some of the things that are coming against what God has ordained for us, the standards that God has ordained for us to live by. It would be super easy for me to get up here and talk about boycotts and talk about doing this and that and the other, and that's okay, because we need to take our stand on some stuff, but that doesn't take care of the root of the issue. So if we cut on it, a few years later down the road, we're going to see that fruit coming right back because we didn't take care of the root. Somebody say, we need to take care of the root. All right. So I was burdened for this next generation, and I felt like today would be a great day to challenge fathers. I believe that the fathers that God, Pastor Ray said something beautiful a while ago, how God blesses us with children and that they are arrows against the enemy. God has given us something that sometimes us parents don't even cherish. So today, I'm going to help us try to cherish some of those gifts. It's not going to be just for fathers. It's going to be aimed toward fathers, but it's also going to take care of spiritual fathers and mentors. And if you're not doing that, you probably need to be doing that, because that is kingdom mentality. And maybe you're here today and you're not a father, spiritual father, but you're a mother. It's okay. It still applies to you as well today. So Summit, I want to challenge us with something before we get in. We have a mission statement, and I wonder if we can recite that. Summit exists to empower sons and daughters to establish a kingdom culture that will impact the world. It's time for fathers in this house to rise up. It's time for spiritual fathers of this house. It's time for mothers of this house to rise up and to make an impact in the world in which we live. Now more than ever, the world needs Summit and other kingdom-minded churches to rise up. Do you believe with that? Do you believe that with me today? Unfortunately, there are many alarming trends happening right now in America, one of which is the lack of God-fearing fathers that are rightfully standing in the gap for this generation as the priest of their home and raising children with the admiration of God and His commands. Do you believe that? Okay, because you know what? If you just stick your head out of the bubble just for a few minutes, the bubble in which you find yourself in, the people that you on a daily basis talk to, if you were just to peer outside of that bubble just for a minute, let me tell you what you would see. You would see morals of the world fading faster than Krispy Kreme donuts when the hot light sign is on. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? How many of you, do not lie to me, how many of you roll by Krispy Kreme and if the hot light's on, it does not matter what your diet says, you are going to turn up in that joint and you're going to get you some? Okay. All right, so I got some truthful people in the house of the Lord. But unfortunately, the morals of this world are fading faster than the donuts at a donut stand when the hot light is on. Why is that happening? What is the root cause? We can be quick to point blame at different things, all ranging from government, to past hurt, and maybe even the lack of our own identity in Christ. But in reality, listen to me, church, in reality, God has given us the authority to govern our own house. And if we would step into that authority, I'm convinced that we would not see kids killing kids in schools, and we wouldn't see homosexuality on the rise. We wouldn't see workplaces paying for abortions. We wouldn't see 40% of Americans believing that marriage is an obsolete concept. We wouldn't see divorce, 50% of divorce overtaking the other 60% that do believe in marriage. If we were to stand up and take our rightful place, we could change the outcome of what we're seeing right now. Do you believe that today? If there's blame to be placed, we as the Church of America have to take the blame. We have been way too relaxed with the authority that God has given us in our own homes, and we have thrown away our moral compass for something that is inclusive of almost anything, including things that don't reflect the very heart of our Father. It is time for fathers to rise once again in the God-given authority and power to take back that which the enemy has so desperately tried to steal from us. And it is time that the Church of America rise again to reclaim a generation for God's glory. I'm here on purpose today. I'm sorry. I mean, this is a whole nother side of Sean that you're seeing. Normally there's a YouTube video and this and that and the other, but I'm on purpose today. God has me here to challenge us as fathers. No longer can we put our kids on the back burner. Because we've done that, we find ourselves in the area that we do right now. Now, I know it's easy for us to get excited and shout and hear about rising up and taking our authority, but something happens to some of us when we walk out of those doors. Schedules start getting in the way. priorities don't really align with those ideals, or maybe we feel inadequate to have any authority at all. So we shout in here and nothing ever changes in our homes, and we accept this as the new norm. Today we're going to look through a few scriptures to see if we can change some of those mentalities with the help of the Holy Spirit. So the first point I want to talk to you about is get your priorities in order. Can we say that together? Get your priorities in order. It is very important that you have your priorities in order. Because if you don't have your priorities in order, things that don't really need as much attention get too much attention and take away from things that really do need the attention. Did you get that? There was a lot of attention in there. Did you get that? Do I have your attention today? All right. When we don't have our priorities in order, something will rise up and take needed time, dedicated time away from something that we really went ahead and signed on to do. Just a side note, what is it with this generation to where we can't have honor and fulfill our responsibilities? To where one day you show up to work, the next day you don't. And the reason why you don't is because you don't feel the responsibility that you signed on the dotted line to be there at a certain time. We can't point blame solely on this generation because the generation prior set that example for them, especially when it came to the house of the Lord. It's rough. It's a hard word today. Stick with me. We're gonna get it around. It's gonna be fun. All right? But we have the opportunity right now in this moment of time to reclaim a generation for the Lord. I'm going to say it again. We right now have a moment that God put together, an ordained moment of time for us to reclaim a generation for His glory. Are we going to have enough strength and stamina to step up to the plate to make it happen? Or are we going to allow our priorities that are out of whack to cause us to miss a dedicated moment in God's presence? How many of you have your word with you today? All right, 5 of you. What happened to the rest of you? No, I'm just kidding. If you have your word, let's turn to Luke chapter 2. Luke chapter 2. Everybody feeling good today? All right. Give me energy. Give me some feedback. We'll get you out of here on time, I promise, I think. Unless the Holy Spirit has other plans, and we will gladly do what He asks us to do. All right? That's the house you're in. So, all right. Luke chapter 2, verse 41 through 52. We're going to read a little bit, but we're going to find some really funny things in here, and we're going to laugh a little bit as well, okay? So everybody shout amen when you're there. All right, that's most of you. All right, verse 41, I'm reading in the NIV. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. After the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." That's funny, right? Yeah. Why were you searching for me, he asked. Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. I thought that was kind of funny that he was obedient after the fact, but that's a side note. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. How many parents do I have in the room? I want to see the hands. Yeah, okay, we have tons of parents in the room. Keep those hands up, and children, look around. Look around. I'm going to teach you something real quick, okay? All right, you can put those hands down. Children, watch this. Parents, what's the one of the first rules of thumb that you get taught as a parent? When it's quiet, okay? Did y'all hear that? When it's quiet, something's going on. Or when it's quiet, your children are getting into trouble. I find it pretty hilarious that the parents of Jesus walk a whole day not realizing that it was a little more quiet than normal. I find it pretty ironic that the parents of Jesus didn't recognize that he wasn't around. I'm telling you, I went to the island the other day. We had how many kids with us? 5, 6, 7. 6, 7, 7. We had 7 kids at the island at nighttime. And some of them, they weren't all mine. Some of them didn't have their medications for the day. Okay? I find it really funny that Jesus' parents didn't know that Jesus wasn't around. Now, let's get back over here. I'm going to read another part that just adds on to that. Verse 46. After 3 days, they found him. 4 days, the Son of God is missing. Come on. Wouldn't you like to be Mary and Joseph, known for this story? Yeah? All right. But you know what? I found out something that's really cool here. There's something significant about the 1 day and the 3 days. Let's see how many math whizzes we have in the house. 1 plus 3 equals 4. 4. 4. So do you know what 4 means in Hebrew? 4 in Hebrew means seasons. And in Strong's, I can get really scholarly on you right now. Number H4150 for all you that have your Strong's out right now. 4150. 4 is translated as appointed time. Appointed time. So Jesus wasn't lying. He wasn't just, Jesus didn't lie. But Jesus wasn't just blowing smoke right here when he said that he had to be about his Father's business. There was an appointed time for him to be in the temple doing what he was doing. But the problem is the parents were so wrapped up in their priorities that were wrapped up around their custom that they missed the opportunity to join in with the appointed time in God's presence. Priorities are really important to God. God says, I am a God of order, priority, order. So if we have our priorities, I'm gonna simplify it right here, okay? What's the point? VBS people, what's the point? The point is that if your priorities are out of alignment, there's a good chance you're going to miss your appointed time with your Father. So let me just give you, actually, you know what, I'm going to say this. Can anybody tell me another story in the Bible that uses the time frame of 4 days? Shout it out. Lazarus. And he was resurrected from death to life because of an appointed time. Maybe there's something dead in your life right now and you can't get it to come back to life. And because your priorities are out of alignment, you're missing the appointed time for God to speak life into the dead area. This is the way that I would put my priority list. So if you have your pen, you got some paper, maybe take down this list. Okay, and I won't back some of it up with scripture, but it kind of goes like this. Number one priority, can anybody guess that one? God, yes. God, we commit to placing God as the center and priority of our lives. And you can find out where to do that in Matthew 22 when Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? And Jesus said to love God and what? Love people. Yep. So there's number one. What would be number two? Somebody shout it out. Family is number two. Family's number two. We build strong families because strong families honor God. Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. Number three, anybody? Come on, shout it out. Work. We work hard to provide the best care and support for our families. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. If a man will not work, he shall not eat. And then he goes on to say that we hear that some among you are idle. Okay? So there's where that's found. Number four, somebody shout it out. What? Ice cream? Well. All right, number four, I'm going to give you a hint. It's where you're at right now. All right, yeah. Number four, church. We worship regularly and participate in the faith community. Hebrews 10:24-25. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Yes, it's important for you to be at church. So give yourself a high five on the back because you are in the house of the Lord today. Nobody gave them, everybody's like, you're beating up on me. I don't know if we can do it. Come on, give yourself a pat on the back. There you go. Number five, I guarantee you nobody knows this one. Number five, shout it out if you think you do. Money, ice cream, nope, wrong. Freedom and liberty. Whoa. We strive to maintain and respect our freedoms. Galatians 5:1. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Anybody free in the house? All right. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. It is up to us to celebrate and cherish the gift of freedom. When we get all of our priorities out of order, chaos happens. And God says he's not the author of confusion. But when priorities are in order, listen to this very carefully. Even when it is hectic, not chaotic, hectic, you will still have the peace of God in your life. You hear me? Just because you put your priorities in order doesn't mean everything just magically happens for you. Okay? You're still going to have troubles and trials. But the beauty of it is, just like Peter walking on the water, he still had peace in the middle of the storm. All right. Am I losing you? Second point, don't let previous failures keep you from moving into the now with God. Parents, do not allow past failures to keep you from moving into the now time, the appointed time with God. Let's turn in our Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 16. First Samuel 16. Let me give you a backstory as you're getting there. Israel wanted a king because God wasn't good enough. Wow. Saul was appointed king. God wanted to use the army of Israel to punish the Amalekites. He told Saul to totally destroy them. Do not spare them. Put death to the men and the women, the children, the infant, the cattle, and the sheep, the camels, and the donkeys. And Saul killed everything except the king and the best livestock. God had enough, and now we pick up the story in verse 1 of Samuel 16. Everybody there? All right. Samuel 16. The Lord said to Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king. But Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me. The Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what to do. You are to anoint for me the one I indicate. Samuel replied, yes, in peace. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me. Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. But the Lord said, when they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. That's good enough right there for us to go home on. Then Jesse called Abinadab and had him pass in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. Jesse then had Shammah. That's a beautiful name. Shammah passed by, but Samuel said, nor has the Lord chosen this one. Jesse had Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, the Lord has not chosen these. So he asked Jesse, are these all the sons that you have? There is still the youngest. Jesse answered, he's tending the sheep. Samuel said, send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives. So he sent for him and had him brought in. He was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. This is the one. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. Samuel then went to Ramah. So let me ask a question. If the prophet of the Lord showed up to your house and said for you to get your children together because God wants to anoint one of them king or queen, would you leave one of your kids out of that? Why would Jesse do that? Some people say that because of sheep and the cost of living in the day and the way that sheep was looked at as a monetary value, that it was more important for David to be out there tending the sheep. I kind of find that hard to believe. If the prophet of the Lord came to my house and said, I want to anoint one of your children, I'm going to have both of my children there in the presence of the prophet of the Lord. Does not matter which one, I'm going to have them both. So it has us thinking, why does Jesse have one of his sons in the field tending sheep instead of standing before Samuel? Was it because Jesse thought that David was too young? Because remember, later on, a couple chapters after this, the children of Israel find themselves in front of this big guy called Goliath. And David's brothers are there on the front lines fighting, but Jesse sends David to feed them because he wasn't of age to fight. So was Jesse looking at the child saying, he's too young to do what God wants to do? It's quiet in this house today. Think about this. If this underage child wouldn't have gone to the front lines to feed his brothers, the Bible says that Goliath was there to overcome the children of Israel and make them their slaves. Yet the king of Israel couldn't stand up to Goliath, nor any of the trained people. You hear me? The of age trained people. None of them stepped up and took the authority God had given them. There was only one. His name was David. David, underage, and what some people think was an illegitimate child of Jesse, stepped up and killed Goliath, and the children of Israel were freed from slavery. Not to mention the fact that in that very moment, the bloodline of the King of Glory was solidified, because Jesus himself came from the bloodline of King David, the son of Jesse. Some scholars think that Jesse actually didn't look at him because he was too young. He looked at him and didn't want him to be a part of it, because if he would have been there, the prophet would have understood, based on the appearance of David, that child was born out of wedlock. Let me back up and say that earlier on in the story, when the prophet came to the town, everybody was fearful. Because back in this day, when God said to do something and you didn't do it, there's a good chance you might die. Okay? Celebrate our freedom, right? Yeah. Celebrate the grace and the mercy that God has extended to us, this generation. So can you imagine Jesse possibly, this is what some Jewish scholars actually say this, that if he is really illegitimate, Jesse didn't want him to be there, because Jesse, having an illegitimate son, would have brought shame upon the family of Jesse. So he left him out there hoping that God wouldn't pick him. That'll speak volumes if you'll let it. That'll speak volumes to the people in here that are dealing with identity issues. Just because you're illegitimate by somebody else's standards doesn't mean that God can't use you. That would also speak to another thing, that parents, do not allow your past failures to dictate how you parent your kids. So what, you're divorced? Pick up all the pieces. Go get some inner healing. We offer it here at the church. Get you some inner healing. Get rid of the baggage and love the new wife as Christ loves the church. Come on. Verse 12 in the English Standard Version said that he was ruddy. Anybody know what the definition of ruddy is? We have a lot of people that are ruddy up in the hills of Tennessee. Ruddy is redheaded. Redheaded, ruddy. Now, we listen to that, in our vernacular, and we kind of think, man, ruddy, that sounds nasty. No, the Bible actually says that he was very handsome. And he had very striking features, but the difference was he was ruddy. Have you ever seen a ruddy Jew? It's very uncommon to see a ruddy Jew. So it kind of points to the fact that David was illegitimate. Another thing that points to the fact that David was illegitimate was the fact that after he was anointed king, the Word of God does not mention his mother's name. It is a common place that anybody of authority in the spiritual lineage, if they are of authority, God has anointed them, that if they are legitimate by bloodline, that their name, the name of their parents, their mother, would be also associated with their story in the book of God. But David's mother isn't represented. So again, we have to point back to the fact that he was illegitimate. Another reason, just third for the charm, just to make sure that you understand that this is a good possibility. Because if you understand the good possibility that he was illegitimate, it will completely change your mindset on who God is and how bad he wants you to succeed in life. If you really get a hold of this. So Psalm 51:5. This is right after David has an adulterous affair with Bathsheba. And King David wrote, "Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in my sin my mother conceived me." In sin I was conceived. And then he finds himself doing the same identical thing. When we rise up as fathers of God, we can break the curse of sin on our children's lives. We literally have the spiritual authority to speak to mountains inside of their lives and watch them be removed. We literally have the same power that rose Jesus Christ from the dead that's living inside of us, and we can speak life to the dead areas of our children if we rise up in the authority. Woo! So there's a good chance David was illegitimate. Jesse parented him very well, though, because he became king and he killed Goliath. We'll keep rolling. My third point, don't be overwhelmed. It's a process. It won't change overnight. Okay? Rising up to be a priest of your house can be overwhelming. It can be a monumental task. It can make you question if you even have the authority of God inside of you. But God gave you the child. If God gave you the child, you have his authority inside of you. You hear me? You have his authority to be the priest. We are so blessed right here to have an amazing mother of the faith here at Summit, Pastor Sandra. Come on, are you with me? Yeah. Pastor Sandra, I believe, is the very definition of a spiritual mother. Like when I went to Merriam-Webster, her picture was right underneath the word mother. But sometimes we elevate her walk to a level that we ourselves feel like we can never obtain. And we allow the enemy of our life to overwhelm us because maybe we don't have the time to spend on our face before God. Maybe we don't have the time, or maybe we don't have the know-how on how to parent our children, how to take the reins of our children that God has so graciously given them and chisel on them. If they're really arrows, chiseling on them so that they fly straight and true at the enemy. Maybe we get overwhelmed because our priorities are out of order. Or maybe we get overwhelmed because we are allowing past mistakes to overtake us in this appointed time. Here's a question. How long did it take you to get on the path that you're currently on? And only you can answer this. How long have you been going without the presence of God in your life on a daily basis? How long have you been like, is there a little dust on the Bible? How long has it been since you found yourself meditating day and night on the Word of God and listening to worship, anointed worship music? How long has it been? Let me tell you something. Look at this beautiful physique that I have. Beautiful physique. Okay? I did work out a time in my life. And when I worked out, I went to this gym, and it was a boot camp gym, and some really cool things happened there. But look, the trainer would always tell me a couple of things. The first thing the trainer would always say is, Sean, how long have you been living, eating the way that you're eating? If you've been eating the way that you've been eating for 6 years, you cannot come in here expecting a 24-hour turnaround. Yeah? You with me? How many's been to the gym? You actually filled out the paperwork to be at a gym? Yeah, some of you are card holders at a gym, and you haven't even darkened the door in the last 3 years. And you're just throwing out money every month. On the 30th of June, you're going to be throwing out some more money, and you've never been to the gym, but somehow in our mind, our mentality, our culture tells us that it's got to be an overnight switch. When in actuality, the overnight switches don't last. Because they're based on the feeling. I looked it up. You know what? How many of us have said in this room, be truthful, you're in the presence of God? How many of us in this room have said, if God would just let me win the lottery, ... The funny thing is, you're expecting, you don't even play the lottery. And then you're expecting God to buy you a ticket, rig the system, and then make it to where you win? A holy God is going to do that? Come on. But you know what? There's a funny statistic. Actually, it's not a funny statistic. It's more of a staggering statistic. Over 70% of people that win the lottery are bankrupt in 7 years or less. You know why? Because they didn't have the systems to support what they had been given. Because they had never lived their life that way. God is a God of process. There's a reason why sometimes He doesn't give you exactly what you want when you want it. There's a reason why sometimes you have to prayerfully seek His face day and night, night and day, day and night, night and day. And maybe 5 years down the road, you get that blessing. I wasn't even going to share this, but you know what? When me and my wife got married, I gave up one of my prized treasures, and it was a truck. Hang with me. We're about to wrap it up. It was a beautiful truck. Ford Ranger. Everybody laugh. It was a Ford. Yeah. I love it. I love it. It was a beautiful, beautiful truck. I gave it up when we became married because I wanted to make sure financially we were ready to go. Do you know that it took us, my wife never lost hope that she would give me a truck at some point. She never stopped working to get me the opportunity of a lifetime to have the truck that I wanted. God even spoke into my life 3 separate times very distinctly that this is the truck that I'm going to give you. This is the model. This is the color. This is even a model representation of what you can put on your desk and claim it every single day, believing that I'm going to give it to you. My wife and I have been married going on 18 years. I finally got that truck 4 years ago. And do you know, when I got that truck, I was the most thankful individual I had ever been in my life. I had so many people giving me a hard time because it was a Ford, and I didn't even care. I didn't care. You know why? Because it was a God-given gift. And it took me a long time to get it, and all that time that it took for me to get it caused a gratefulness, a thankfulness to rise up inside of me that my God is a good God. And He's going to give me the desires inside of my heart. It may not come overnight. I may need the systems around me to be able to support it. Can I tell you something? If I would have had that Ford F-150 the second year of our marriage, we would have died in bankruptcy because I didn't have the money to take care of the gas on the truck. But He waited until the appointed time, the 4th day of my life, after all the constant struggle and the praying and the seeking. And He gave it to me at the perfect time where I had a budget to where I could take care of the truck that He gave me. I had a support system. Some of you have not started on the path of being a spiritual father and mother in your home because you think it's too daunting of a task. Can I tell you something? There's something that happens that's beautiful in the middle of the process. There's something beautiful that happens when it doesn't take just 24 hours, but when you seek day and night and day, there's no weapon that's formed against you that will ever prosper. The process is important. Woo. Y'all got me preaching. Man. Perfection. This is my last point. Perfection, question mark. Last point. I'm wrapping it up. I promise. Matthew 5:48. Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Why in the world would God ask us to be perfect when He knows our fallen state? Here's the second thing my gym instructor would always tell me. When I would walk in the door and she would say, hey, you're going to do 150 burpees today. And I said, do what? I can't even make it past 10. She said, I don't care. Get on the floor, do burpees. It was a boot camp. Don't y'all want to go to that? A lot of grace in that place. So here I am doing burpees. I get over 10 and I start doing 12. And then I get over 12 and I start doing 15. And my mind is saying, shut it down. You've never gone over 10 before. But at the same time, my gym instructor is yelling at me, come on, keep going. Come on, keep going. And she's setting something. She's setting a mark that I need to achieve, knowing that I'm not going to achieve it. Have you seen my physique again? There's no way I'm doing 150 burpees. But she set that goal knowing that it would push me out of my comfort zone and into something I've never done before. God set perfection above us, knowing that when we are looking for perfection, the only eyes we can look into are His and His alone. The only way we can get there is through His grace and His mercy and His unconditional love. Are you thankful for His love today? In closing, worship team, if you would come on up. Effectively, we need to have our priorities in order. We don't need to allow failures to keep us paralyzed. We need to understand that perfection is only found through Jesus Christ. And even though we can't humanly achieve that level, we don't have to be overwhelmed by it all. We just need to set our goals high, knowing that if and when we fail, God is there to pick us up, dust us off, and set us firmly on His foundation. I'm here today to challenge you as fathers and mothers and spiritual fathers and mothers to take the first step and start refining the arrows that God has given you in your children. It does not matter how overwhelming the enemy would like to paint the picture that it's going to be. John Maxwell says this: to be a father is about adding value differently, which means I am constantly stretching myself in new ways. Just like when my kids were growing up and I had to change tactics or reset my thinking, I'm finding that being a father to many means constantly adjusting how I approach life. My thinking is deeper, bigger, more defined, and as a result, my dreams are larger and more significant than I ever imagined, because they are dreams for other people. That's what it means to be a father. That's what my dad did for me. He dreamed big dreams on my behalf and then loaned me his belief to chase dreams on my own. I am blessed that he is still with me. This will be our 72nd Father's Day together, and every year reminds me of how wonderful it is to have my Father's love and investment. It also reminds me to pay that kind of love forward. In that way, the biggest gift of a father is to pour into the others what is valuable and good and helpful, and challenge them to repeat the process in the next generation. The influence of a father can either build or destroy, and our world needs more of the former. We have more than enough of the latter. My challenge to you this Father's Day is to add value to someone else, invest in them, encourage them, challenge them, loan them your belief in their potential, and then equip them to do something amazing with it.